Jimmie Johnson has joined us. He's our 5-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series defending champion. And he comes into the Texas Motor Speedway event. He's 6th in points, made up a little bit of ground at Martinsville last week, came in 2nd at Martinsville, and he's coming here at Texas where he's won before. And, 3 races remaining in the chase here. And Jimmie, what kind of outlook do you have this weekend for the number 48 Milo Chevrolet?
I think we've. Is this fun? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're gonna have a great race this weekend. The effort's been made through Hendrick Motorsports and through the Lowe's race team to improve on the mile and a half. That's been something we've worked really hard on all year long, and it's right. And we've been able to prove that at Kansas and on a lot of other mile and a half tracks where we've competed up front for the wins. So. I'm excited for our chances, and we've got to go out there and get everything we can every lap. And from a championship perspective, it's out of our control to win the championship, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that we're out of it, but we're going to need help. And if Tony and Carl would be so nice to allow me back in, I would appreciate that, along with some of the other guys that are up there. But we're going to go race and try to take trophies home and see where this thing shakes out.
Okay, thank you, Jimmie. We'll take some questions now. Raise your hand. We've got a couple wireless mics. Let's go Lee, Lewis, and then to Shannon.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. Hate to ask that this isn't about you, but Mark Martin just signed a deal that he'll be racing 2 years with an option. And if there is somebody who's ageless in this sport, it's Mark Martin. Can you just talk about the possibility of him racing at his age, and do you intend on racing when you're 55?
I don't know, and I respect Mark for continuing, and there's something inside of him as a racer that we all respect, and at his age he can't stop, and I'm proud of him, and we know what he has done physically to be this, strong as or the strongest guy out there, and that number doesn't affect his reasons being in the race car. So I know what he has done to Hendrick Motorsports and to myself, the type of teammate he's been, the type of man he is, and I know he'll be a great asset over there at MWR. So I don't know many of the details, and saw a little bit of buzz about it, but happy that he has found a home, and know that he'll be a huge asset for MWR.
Let's go Lewis, Shannon, and then Jim.
Lewis Frank of Reuters. Have you spoken to Rick in the last day or two? How's he feeling, and does he expect to be at a racetrack in the last couple of races? Yeah,
I saw him, Wednesday evening. Went by to see he and Linda, and they're both doing well, really good. Certainly sore and things of that nature, but their spirits are high. They still have a lot of questions themselves, and the whole process is going through its motions now, where hopefully we'll have some answers. As I, just like everyone else, I want to know what happened, and they certainly do as well. So, but they're doing well. Their spirits are high. They're very thankful that things turned out the way that it did, and that the runway had the extra distance and all of that, because it could have been bad, really could have.
Shannon, and then Jim Utter.
Shannon Spake, ESPN. Jimmie, since 2004, I was looking at some stats. You have been either 1 or 2 in the points coming into this race since 2004. What is it like for you right now? Obviously, not mathematically out, but not truly in the thick of this championship hunt.
It's disappointing, to say the least. It's easy to find an angle if we didn't have the speed, and we had other issues going on from a on-track perspective, that we didn't have the speed, we couldn't compete, on and on. Maybe there's pit road problems, whatever it is. We don't have that this year. We did in the summer stretch. We needed speed on the mile and a half, and we had our issues on pit road. And even past chases, we can look at last year and say, what we did here, changing pit crews out, was huge. And I admitted then that we didn't have the speed to run with the 11, but we found a way to get it done. This year, in this chase, we've had the speed on pit road and on the racetrack, and we just haven't finished the races off like we needed to stay in contention. So, that responsibility ultimately lands on my shoulders, and to a certain degree on Chad's. So that's where the disappointment comes from, is that there's been a handful of races where crashes, incidents, even strategy at Dega, different things that just didn't play out. And that part stings. But, that's sports, it's racing, and we got to learn from the outcome of this year and whatever happens. We've got to learn from that to not let that happen again in the future.
Let's go with Jim, Bruce, Martin, and Claire.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. I think you pretty much answered this question. I was going to ask you if you had any updates about the plane, but nothing other than what you've already said.
Yeah, nothing yet. There were a lot of crews that were scrambled to be there to take place in the investigative process, but there's just no news, unfortunately. And they certainly don't want to lead us to believe, or anyone to believe, anything but the truth. So I would assume it's going to be real quiet until they know what went on.
My other question was, the last couple seasons we have seen, last season we saw you rally from behind. We saw some dramatic swings in the last couple races of the chase. There's been some seasons where you've won, where you've pretty much been out front and held off people. If you had to guess, which one of those two are we most likely to see here in the last 3 races?
I think we're going to see, with an 8-point spread between first and second, and I don't know how far back Kevin is.
I believe it's 21.
21. Man, it's hard to say. I don't see Tony or Carl having any weak tracks moving forward. And Tony has shown his strength on 1.5 miles, and he's great at Phoenix. And granted, Phoenix has changed, so it's kind of a crapshoot for anybody. But the 99 has been strong on the 1.5 mile stuff. So I think we're going to have a shootout to the end. And if something does happen with either one of them, obviously it lumps in a bunch of other guys. But I just don't see any big mistakes coming from those guys. And time will tell.
Let's go Bruce, Claire, and then Mike Mulhern.
You kind of touched on a point right there talking about Phoenix. I know you're focused on Texas right now, but looking ahead to Phoenix, how much different is that track going to be, and how much are a lot of the crew chiefs and engineers kind of scratching their heads trying to figure out what it's going to be like next week? What will it be like?
From my experience there, I was a part of that first tire test and then the open test. For whatever reason, if it's the asphalt or the tire or both, and then obviously the dirty air, the wind blowing dirt and being out in the middle of the desert, it takes a long time to burn in a lane that you can adjust to. And out of my 2 times being there, you're chasing one balance in the race car, and then finally the track rubbers up, and you got to back all of that out, and then you're finally on the path you need to be on. I think we're going to be struggling when we unload. What do you unload with? And then when does the track show up, and where do you build faith in your setup and what direction to go in? And then from there, the second lane, even at the open test, it was really a groove and a half at the most width-wise. And hopefully the races leading up to ours will clean up a second lane so that we can have good restarts and somewhere to race side by side. But for whatever reason, it takes so long to burn a lane in, and then you're afraid to move out and push that any wider. So it's going to be a guessing game, to say the least.
Is it still going to be considered a driver's track like the old Phoenix was?
It's a fun lap to drive. I don't know if we're really going to be able to race in all the areas on the track yet, but I think from a driver's standpoint, you can't make mistakes. That's how people are going to overtake you. If you make a mistake, you're going to open a door and maybe lose 5 or 6 spots because you just can't get back down in line.
Claire, and then Mike. Go ahead, Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. 2 quick things. One, how did you get here? Did you just jump on another Hendrick plane then, given that your plane was out? And, concerns aside, was that hard for you? And I'll ask that question first.
Yeah, we drove from Charlotte. No, we had our big day yesterday in Oklahoma for our grants announcement for the Jimmie Johnson Foundation. So we took another Hendrick plane to Oklahoma and then brought us here. So we do have a fleet at Hendrick Aviation to pull from, which is nice. And our plane was within that fleet. So and Rick's not going anywhere right now, so his plane was available.
Gotcha. Okay, and second of all, can you put the championship and winning in perspective? Because our sport's so different. Every single weekend there's only one winner, and then everyone else, have always been said, are losers. And you guys kind of grow up your whole life trying to be the winner, and you've won so many championships in a row. Is it hard to put in perspective what not winning that would be like? I mean, would your team be able to walk away feeling, not like you've lost everything just because you're not the champions if you don't get it?
No, I mean, we have high expectations for ourselves, and so does this room and the fans because of what we've accomplished. And after you win a championship, you want more, and after you win 5 in a row, it just seems like you should be a contender at a minimum. So we have a lot of pressure on ourselves, and yes, we're going to be disappointed if we're not the champions. But I look at this year and where we were at different points of the year, and the new faces we have going over the wall, and the progress they've all made. The progress we made as a company with the speed in our cars from the start of the year to now. It's been a tougher year for us on a performance standpoint than we expected to have. And I think we're understanding our equipment now, and 12 will be a good year. And just like any competitor, if it's not your year this year, you learn from the low spots, you praise your crew for the high spots, and you move on. I don't want to see the streak end, nor does my team. But if it does, it does, and we've got to learn from it and go on.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Muller, MikeMuller.net. 2 questions. Was that plane, the Key West plane, the one that you would have flown here normally? And the second, we had a lot of shakeups at Hendrick last year after the season. I assume that you and Chad will be back together next year and there will be no big shakeups this year. Can you talk about those 2?
Yeah, that is our plane that my family and I fly on week in and week out. And then, Casey coming in with Kenny and that whole deal, that would be it's not necessarily a shakeup, but everybody is really content, and I think performance is showing in 24, 88, 48 that we'll bring Kenny in and try to adapt him and Casey to the fold.
Shannon, do you have another question?
So for a guy who has not only held off competitors trying to knock them out of that top spot and also have knocked guys out going for the championship, what's your advice to Carl and Tony right now as they go for this championship?
Well, both have been, in the thick of it before. Tony is won his 2. I think that there is a bit of comfort that I've experienced over the years racing for my 3rd, and after you win 1, the huge weight's lifted off your shoulders. So, Carl's won championships in other forms, and you're going to have to pull on all of that experience to do the job to win at this level. And I don't want to advise them. I would like them both to let myself and others back into this. So I don't necessarily have advice, but I'm going to be watching and with excitement and certainly hoping that my Hendrick kind of teammate in a way, if you will, has some great success here these next 3 weeks.
Jimmie, as always, we appreciate you coming in, and a lot of luck to you this weekend.
Cool.
Thank you.